Welcome to another edition of Trucking on Route 66. My name is Tom Peters. I'm the Dean of Library Services at Missouri State University. Today's date is Wednesday, October 11th of 2017. Our special guest today is Georgia Shaffer. Georgia, welcome.
Thanks.
We're here at the Library Center of the Springfield-Greene County Public Library District. So Georgia, you worked for Camel 66 Express for a number of years, a number of decades?
27 years.
27 years, okay. When did you start?
I started in 1958, I believe.
So you stayed through till?
1986.
86.
I was the last out the door.
Okay. So when Camel 66 Express dissolved, I guess, I don't know exactly what happened, closed, filed for bankruptcy?
They filed bankruptcy.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they did.
So back in the beginning, what was your first job at Camel 66 Express?
Well, I came to Springfield from Sumter, South Carolina.
Uh-huh.
My first job was a manufacturing job. Newlyweds, baby due.
Oh.
So I left there, but then I went back to Mono Manufacturing, which is no longer there.
Mono. M-O-N-O?
Then my mother-in-law had a heart attack and she was my babysitter, so I stopped again.
Mm-hmm.
And my father-in-law kind of knew somebody at the employment office. So he came in one day and said there was a job open at Camel 66 and it was a good job.
Uh-huh.
And they paid well.
Yeah.
So I went and did my interviews and went back a couple times and called them. They were still considering and they'd let me know. And in a couple days I got the call and had the job.
And what was the job?
I went to work at Camel 66 as a part of the steno pool.
Oh, okay. A stenographer.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And all the directors of all the departments in the building would do all of their dictation. And then they would bring it to the steno pool and we would transcribe it and make it in letter form to go out.
Okay.
I was there for, I don't remember the years I was there, wasn't very many, and then I promoted to the sales department.
Mm-hmm.
And that was dealing with the salesmen, leads on traffic,
Yeah.
leads on businesses,
Yeah.
getting all of the awards for the safety department, the sales department,
Yeah.
and all of the supplies like the hats and the caps, and I was responsible for ordering those and getting them distributed to the terminals.
So how does sales work? How did sales work back then in the trucking industry? Did you get a contract to haul for a particular manufacturer for a period of time, or was it job based? We got a load of whatever widgets going to.
No, it was pretty much by shipper,
Uh-huh.
and the salesman would work the account,
Uh-huh.
and I don't believe there was a contract. We would just be good enough that the companies would use us
Uh-huh.
and call us for shipments.
Uh-huh.
And we had what we call pickup drivers, which were Springfield based,
Or just in town.
just in town.
Yeah.
And then over the road were the ones that.
Now, somebody told me just on that, that on the Camel 66 Express, of course you have Norton, the Camel.
Yes.
If Norton was portrayed as walking or standing, it was an in-town truck. And if he was running, it was an over-the-road truck.
No.
Okay.
It started, the emblem for Camel 66 started out as the camel on the side of Camel cigarettes.
Yeah.
And he was standing still.
Yeah.
And you may hear this story and you may have already heard it, but there was a little restaurant down under the old building. And I didn't know her and I didn't work there.
And where was the building?
I think it was on Tampa, West
Okay.
Tampa.
Okay.
And
Underneath
that's from
the,
memory. Yeah, under the
underneath
viaduct or something.
the Grant Street viaduct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, they went to a restaurant there to have coffee, and there was a waitress in there that always talked to them. And one day she said to Mr. Campbell, "When are you going to get that camel up and running?" And they did.
So that was just, it was based on time when you see.
Based on some conversation and some time.
Yeah, so if you saw a standing camel, then you knew that was drawn pre.
And it had already progressed before I went to work there.
Oh, he was already running by the
It
time.
was already running there, yeah.
So what was the nature of your work in sales? So you said you.
Well, sales, I did dictation. Shorthand was still a thing then. And I thought I was.
So you do a lot of, did you do a lot of, someone would say, come in and I want to take this letter, and
Yes.
they would tell you, and
Yes.
you'd write it out in shorthand,
Yes.
and then you go back and transcribe it on a
Yes.
manual typewriter.
Very, very often, I may be called into Mr. Campbell's office because his person wasn't there.
Uh-huh.
And the items for Camel tracks, I would take those in dictation and then type it up. He'd
Really?
approve it and then we'd go. Or if anybody wanted to send a letter and wanted to dictate, I did.
Yeah.
And there was a Mr. Thomas that worked in traffic, and I was taking shorthand from him one day.
Mhm.
And he looked at me and he said, you're really good at that because I can read it. So, but it would be long gone now. They don't do shorthand anymore.
Yeah, so shorthand's gone the way. Well,
But once in a while it still comes in handy.
Yeah. You still know how to do?
When I'm doing something, yeah. Some
Yeah.
of it I remember.
Does it come back? Yeah.
Yeah, and somebody gave me an old textbook about a year ago, and it was kind of fun to
On
go
how to
through
do
there and see how
shorthand.
much I did.
So shorthand, was it a worldwide sort of language, or
Yes.
just the U.S.?
If
or
you were secretary, that's
you knew how to
what
do shorthand?
secretaries did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, typing and shorthand were taught if that's where you wanted to go, they were taught in high school.
Yeah.
Was it just typing and
Yeah.
shorthand in high school?
See, I can remember, I guess it must have been the early 70s. I learned how to type when I was in, we used to call it junior high, now they call it middle school.
I know, there's confusion to us old folks.
Yeah, it must have been about 7th or 8th grade that I learned how to type.
Yeah.
And it was on a manual typewriter.
Yeah, I think mine was probably in high school.
Yeah.
Because I come from a big family, and I knew college wasn't there
Mm-hmm.
because there were 8 of us siblings.
Mm-hmm.
And I just always thought that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a secretary, and I love the shorthand, and I love the typing. And when I left Camel 66 and took typing tests, I was pleased because I was doing 96 words a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't do that much unless I really get on the computer and go, because it's much different.
Yeah.
And at
Well-
Camel, we did have manual typewriters, but we soon got electrics, which made it much easier.
Yeah, a lot, less.
And then by the time I left, they had the computers.
Yeah. So in the early days, so if you were typing up a letter, let's say, did you use the old carbon paper to make a copy for
Yes.
your files?
Yes.
Yeah.
We got folders from the claim department, and then when I was steno from the sales department or wherever, and yeah, you had to use carbon.
Yeah.
And making mistakes wasn't a great deal of fun.
No.
So then you had to erase and,
Right.
yeah.
Then you have to erase on the carbon too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so then you file the carbon. Did you do envelopes too to mail
Yes.
stuff out? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
When we did the dictation and the letters, they were ready to go into the mail. All the person had to do was sign them.
Yeah.
So we did the envelopes.
Was it a 6-day work week?
No, 5.
Just 5. Okay.
When I first went there, it actually was a person worked the switchboard on Saturdays, and from the steno pool, we took turns working Saturdays. So when we worked a Saturday, we were off on a Wednesday afternoon.
Work a Saturday morning, get a Wednesday afternoon off.
And you need to get a picture of the switchboard.
Yeah.
Somebody said something to me one day about the switchboard, and I said, "Don't tell me about it. I was still using one when Camel closed.
Yeah.
They still had it. I don't know what happened to it. I think they sold it somewhere."
I don't know either. So you had some interaction with Frank Campbell.
Oh yes, a lot of interaction.
Yeah. So what kind of a man was he?
Fantastic, good guy.
Warm, generous,
Warm, generous, but joking.
told a lot of jokes.
He did.
Yeah. Now, this is an era where
He actually had a card file.
of jokes.
Yeah.
So if he heard a good joke, he would write it down.
Yeah, or have us type it for him.
Really? Did you ever have a steno job or what a Frank some joke that he'd heard? Like.
Yeah, no. But if he was going to a meeting or he was going somewhere, he may come to the card file and look for one to take with him.
Uh-huh. Now this was an era where smoking at work was okay.
Oh yes, it was.
A lot of smokers.
A lot of smokers.
Yeah.
A lot of smokers. And we'd complain about it. I would go home and my clothes would just smell like smoke.
Yeah. You weren't a smoker.
No,
But you were from North Carolina.
South Carolina.
South Carolina.
Don't smoke, don't
Big,
drink.
big tobacco state. Yeah.
I've helped put in tobacco.
Yeah.
I worked in the tobacco field when I was down
Really?
there.
Really?
As a teenager.
But you never
But I never smoked. I've
smoked.
never cared to smoke.
Yeah.
Tried it.
You just
don't
didn't like
it.
it? It wasn't really...
Don't drink,
Now
don't
it's
like
all,
it.
it's all about health concerns, but
No, I just don't.
you
I
just didn't, you
care
just
for
didn't like it. Yeah. But a lot of smokers.
My family's that way now. I don't drink.
Yeah.
I just don't have the taste for it.
Now, I don't know if this is just the old movies or not, but you know, there's a lot of business type scenes in old movies where they'll have a drink, you know. 2 in the afternoon, you want a drink? Sure.
Yep.
Did that happen at Camel 66 Express where it was smoking and alcohol were just part of the ambiance? Or?
No, I don't think the alcohol so much.
Yeah.
I think when they went to meetings and if we had a Christmas luncheon
Yeah.
outside of campus,
Yeah.
but there at the office, there was no drinking.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
they went to the bars and they went wherever they wanted to do that.
Yeah, not in the office.
There was one Christmas party off campus that we went to, and it was the first one my husband had gone to. And somebody in line had fixed his drink for this other guy. And this other guy kind of knew it, so he gave it to my husband.
No.
So needless to say, we didn't stay long because he was drunk.
Where would they have an annual Christmas
This was
party?
at Old Half Hill. You remember where that was?
Half a Hill, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would have them there every
It's
year.
like Battlefield and down going towards
Going down the hill, Lone
Galloway
Pine.
Station. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And they'd have them off campus somewhere, and
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
And needless to say, I didn't take my husband to anymore because I still had my job, and I was thankful.
so how many employees were there at Campbell 66?
Oh, I don't remember.
About hundreds or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're in the big office. Yeah, the big office it was because it was a general office.
Yeah.
So you had the whole accounting department, probably had 10 people. You had a data processing department.
Yeah.
You had a claim department.
And they were right
terminal,
there.
which was separate.
Yeah, they were right there in Tampa, you think, was where, beneath Grant Street Viaduct.
I think that's where they were.
Yeah.
You could look that up on the computer probably.
Yeah, I've seen old photographs of the original.
Well, Bruce has a Facebook page,
Yeah.
Campbell's Story, that he does.
Yeah.
But if you just go to Google and type in Camel 66, there are people out there that talk about it.
Yeah.
And I really don't remember. I'm thinking it was Tampa Street.
On Tampa Street.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just.
I know it's under the viaduct somewhere.
The city director would tell me that.
Yeah.
Just go to the city directory. But it was all right there initially. It was one
Yes,
one complex.
as far as I know.
But shipping was.
Because when I went to work there, the building was fairly new. I don't know how many years they've been there,
Yeah,
but it was fairly new.
fairly new.
Fairly nice building.
But the whole the shipping part of it was just a separate operation.
Well, what we call the terminal.
Yeah,
Yeah, it had its own office.
yeah, really. And so you didn't really interact with the.
Oh yeah, they were out in the building with us. We just walked from
okay.
one room and we were in the terminal.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we worked with them too if they needed it.
Yeah.
There was a time when they needed somebody. Dispatch was just across from where we were. And claim department. The guy that did the claims in terminal, they had their own person.
Uh-huh.
That when they get something broken, you have to look at it, see if it was us or them
Yeah.
or what.
Now, Campbell 66 Express acquired other truck lines over the years.
Yeah, and I don't remember all of them.
Okay. Did it affect your job at all, just other than more work?
No, it did not.
Yeah.
They actually finally went to having regional managers as they grew.
Mm-hmm.
So they had 1, 2, 3, I believe, when I was there. And they traveled. They had a certain number of terminals that they were responsible for.
Yeah.
And they traveled, did road trips. Because they would dictate in their car on the way back, and I would get all of those once I was in the sales department.
So they dictate into a recording device of some sort?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Just a regular little,
tape
one of those
recorder?
little box.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Battery operated kind
Uh-huh.
of thing? Yeah.
yeah.
So as they were driving, they'd be dictating
They'd be dictating.
orders and correspondence?
And I got all of those because once I went into sales, I was with the regional managers. They were my responsibility too, to do that work.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we worked on a lot, we call it a point list, but it was a folder with all the points that we served
Mm-hmm.
direct or could serve.
Yeah,
In the
distribution,
States.
yeah.
And I kind of helped update that and
Yeah.
sometimes did some typing.
So I've got to ask you, just in general, back when you were working for Camel 66, I mean, they had a network. I've seen maps that I think it went all the way down to the Gulf, and
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if it went into New Mexico, but it went ways west.
No, didn't go to New Mexico.
Okay. How far?
Texas was probably.
Yeah. Was 66, a main route? Was it just another road that Campbell trucks?
Well, I think
ran
the
from?
66, and I don't know the history as much, but 66, I think, was when they first started the company.
Uh-huh.
And you've probably been told, or you've probably read it, because what he did when he started the company is he hauled cinders out of driveways to places.
Yeah.
And then I think he did dairy something in higher end. Right. And that's when the 66, when he opened and decided to do that, that's where 66 came from, because he was in that area.
Yeah, so he just thought
Real close. So he started off with that.
Looks like an artery.
And then having the name Campbell, he just kind of worked.
Main artery for him was,
Yeah.
So he was a good boss.
Oh, I'd take him back any day.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so the
He
Christmas.
had a big company because he knew how to hold on to his money and take care of it.
Uh-huh. So he was an astute business person.
He was.
Yeah.
He was.
Now the sales team, again, in motion pictures and television, salespeople are often typed. They're outgoing and they're sometimes they make promises that are difficult to keep, and kind of the typical salesperson.
We may have had a few of those.
But they were just hardworking.
But just general, they were like us.
Yeah. All men at this time. You had no female salespeople, or?
We did not early on.
Uh-huh.
At the end, we did.
Uh-huh.
And I can't remember. Like I told you, it's 30 years. I can't remember, but I think there were maybe 3 or 4 in different cities.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Female salespersons. Yeah. And then your group was primarily female, exclusively female?
Steno,
Yeah.
no men doing that.
No man at all.
They wouldn't have done it
Yeah.
back then, excuse me.
Yeah.
Well, they probably would have done it, but it was just one of those things in high school that women took typing in shorthand and they went on to do this.
And it was
Yeah.
So what's a typical day? Would you drive to work? Would you?
Well, when I came to Missouri, married a guy from here, Springfield, I didn't know how to drive.
And how old were you? How old were you when you?
I was 21.
21.
But in the little town we lived in South Carolina, we walked everywhere. And
didn't need to drive.
Mother and Dad had 8 of us, and there were 8 cars. Wasn't going to happen. I actually had a student driving thing.
Uh-huh.
So I would drive.
Oh, you had a permit?
Permit.
Permit, yeah.
I would drive about 7 blocks from home and pick up one of my coworkers who had a license, and we would drive, and that's how I learned and then got my license.
Oh, okay. So you
So
kind of bending the rules a little
drove to
bit there.
work.
You drove about 7 blocks
Yeah.
with a driver's permit.
Yeah.
So then, at some point, you had your own car, or the family car.
Oh yeah, I had my own car.
Yeah.
Once we started. My husband worked at the medical center for federal prisoners.
Oh, really?
So his hours were very different than mine.
How do they operate out there? Do
Do
they have 3 8-hour shifts out there or something? Or?
Every 3 months they change shifts.
Yeah.
And there was one shift in the tuberculosis that they could only work a certain amount of times during the year that they had to be out.
Okay.
He retired when he was 50. He had he was pretty depressed about the whole thing.
Just working there.
And he'd been there 10 years, and he was about ready to give it in. And I've always said, whatever you do, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
And then he came home. He said, "No, I'm going to stay, and I'm going to walk out on my 50th birthday."
Yeah.
And government retirement is phenomenal.
Yeah.
You
So he's been retired 30 plus years?
Uh-huh.
Yeah?
He was retired 15 years before I went home, before I retired or more. Yeah.
Wow.
Because I retired at 66 from Drury.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And yeah, he was there. People laugh at us because I drove on campus one day after we had retired, and he was driving. And some of my friends were there, and I introduced him, and afterwards one said, "I'm really glad to meet him because I thought he was a figment of your imagination." So we're kind of semi-independent, and it's lasted 32 years, 62 years.
Okay.
So that's a good thing.
So, back to your kind of daily routine. So you'd work from 8 to 12, take a lunch break, or?
Punch the clock.
Yeah. Always punch the clock?
Oh, yeah.
Did you get an hour
Lunch.
lunch break?
8 to 5, an hour lunch.
Yeah, so what would you do during lunch? Would you go out to a little?
Well, some of our friends would go, it was when Fisher's Highboy was out
Yeah.
there. We'd go there,
Yeah.
or we'd pick another place to go.
Uh-huh. So you'd eat out most days?
Later on, we had a janitor, and he would take our orders, and he would go get our lunch and bring it back, and the
Oh.
guys would eat in the conference room and play cards.
Really?
And
And what would the women do? Just eat at your desk? Or?
we did it at our desk, or finally, we had a room downstairs
Uh-huh.
for the women,
Like
for
a
the men
break-
too, if they wanted to, but
like
yeah,
a
we
break
had a
room?
refrigerator,
Yeah.
yeah, we had a break room there,
Mm-hmm.
and we'd go down there
Yeah.
and visit.
And then you work again till 5, and then,
Worked 8 to 5,
yeah.
punched the clock. When I left Drury and went to another job, it was kind of tough because we were dedicated, we were ethic, and we worked really hard
Mm-hmm.
at Camel 66,
Mm-hmm.
which is just the way we did it.
Yeah.
And a lot of us, when we went somewhere else, it was really difficult because you had to pace yourself because you didn't have the,
Yeah.
and that was hard for me
Yeah.
to do because I'm like a lady that's still a Drury. I just like to work.
Yeah. Just one rather.
Well, and it was an outlet
Yeah.
to be with the guys and the girls and the
Yeah.
women that I work with.
Yeah. So you liked working at Camel 66?
Loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it. Still be there if it was open.
Yeah. So back to the Christmas party. I've read a little bit about. I mean, he threw a big Christmas party, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then move around from year
For
to year.
the wives too, the
Yeah.
spouses.
Yeah, spouses
Mhm.
could come. And he'd move it around.
He'd move it around. A lot of them that I remember were at Half Hill. It was a real big thing then.
Yeah. So I've heard about Half a Hill, but
Just a rig building. I never really understood the connection of what it did. I think it just had concerts or parties or something. That's all it did.
yeah.
And we
Was
would
it a
go there.
bar, restaurant, or?
No, I think you had to bring your own. No, it wasn't. Yeah, I think we had to bring. I think it was bring your own.
Bring your own.
Yeah, I can't remember.
But they serve food.
I just remember the drink that my husband got. He didn't bring.
It was foisted upon him, unwittingly.
Never live it down.
Yeah. Did they have entertainment during these Christmas parties?
They would.
Would somebody you remember any of the
A
entertainment?
lot of the departments would do it.
Uh-huh.
We had,
Oh, some of the employees would do skits and stuff?
Yeah,
or-
yeah.
yeah.
yeah, talk and.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have like a
whatever, just
band or a
have
singer.
dinner and drink and,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, what kind of dinners would you have at a Christmas party? I mean, you talking about steak and a potato, or
No, we all brought stuff.
Oh, it was a potluck.
It was a potluck. Everybody brought it except the meat we would decide.
And
But everybody brought the other dishes.
Frank would supply the meat and the venue, basically. Yeah.
And we had them in the conference room.
Uh-huh.
I couldn't find it this morning. I was going to bring it because I have a picture of all of us at one of them
Really?
outside.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to see that.
Maybe I can find it.
I'd love to see that.
and
So
get
you
it.
know how to reach me, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I've got a Mac and a computer, so.
Yeah.
But no, it was just a fun time to kind of let loose.
Yeah.
And somebody told me later not to be embarrassed with John because there was always one. So, yeah, it was just a place that worked 8 to 5, worked hard, enjoyed what we did, but then we had a softball team. I was on the bowling team.
Really?
Bowled
Now,
for
where would
years.
you bowl?
We were at Battlefield Lanes.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember the name of the other one now that's on Glenstone.
Yeah, it's still there.
But we had our team was bowling at Battlefield, and we had for a long time, and I can't remember the guy that owned it then. But they came to us one night, because they had a bar, they finally built a bar.
Mm-hmm.
And they came to us one night and told us that we couldn't bowl there anymore, because we didn't drink enough,
Really?
because none of us drank.
Yeah. Well,
So we just kind of got angry about it, and we called, there was a lady in the city that was doing that kind of stuff. And she said, well, you have to, You have to protest one time. You have to march one time. So here we are in Battlefield with these signs. But they called us in 2 days and told us we could come back. So,
Did you go back?
yeah, we finished out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, till we all quit.
Well, I guess there's money in those drinks, so for a lot
Well,
of businesses, that's
well,
where,
yeah, I think they
that's,
have 2 bars now.
that's where you're making your money is on the
Yeah.
drinks, not,
Right,
not
right.
you know, selling lines of bowling.
Yes, yes.
When you were working for Camel 66, did you? I guess what I'm trying to ask is, you were working for a trucking company. Did you know that you were working? I mean, in some ways, dictation and stenography, it doesn't matter what the business is doing. It's still dictation and
Well, you learn a
stenography.
lot of new words. You know,
Yeah.
I learned what deadhead was.
What's a deadhead?
That's where you ship a shipment back and no charge.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you're not making any money on it. It's deadhead.
Oh, okay. Is it
Um,
also? I'm trying to remember. I thought I heard if you're you know, like if you took something to the West Coast and came back empty, you were deadheading it. You're driving without.
We're deadheading the truck, but we didn't do that because we didn't. Our drivers could only drive 14 hours, I believe it was, before they had to rest.
Uh-huh.
And then the trucks were weighed, and I don't think we ever did any real full trailer deadheads.
Yeah.
When they had the humper division for a little while, which didn't.
The humper
last very
division?
long.
What'd you call it?
Yeah, humper division.
What was that division?
It came along when there was deregulation and these guys could get their trucks and be independent.
Oh,
So they broke off a portion of
Oh,
Camel
I see.
66 and made it humper.
they were
division.
like independent truckers who just weren't
Independent,
working
yeah.
for 66. Camel
Truck line's
66.
still there, still working.
Yeah.
It's RBX out on
Oh, okay.
Stratford.
So that was really called the humper.
Because they pulled, yeah.
That was called the humper division.
Because the union, they had to have a different building because the union was protesting so much, so that's
Yeah.
when they called it the Humper Division.
Okay.
It really didn't exist very long because bankruptcy came along.
Toward the end there.
Yeah.
So, did you feel like, I mean, the company was growing during your years, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, was there a certain excitement about that, to be part of a growing company?
It was, we added a new terminal.
Yeah,
It was exciting.
Take
When we
some
went to
pride.
Indianapolis, everybody was excited because you know you're gonna get more freight and you know your chances of an increase in salary is gonna be there.
Yeah.
The company's doing much better.
yeah,
In Camel 66, when I came to work there, if I remember right, I started working in the steno pool
mhm,
in about 58 at 75 cents an hour.
Hmm.
And they were the best paying in Springfield.
that was good, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And when we left, it was still that way. The office portion was not union.
mhm.
It was only the drivers.
But you still
and the
got,
dock
compared to
people.
the
But we had
region, you had a good,
that was
good-
kind of a sore spot.
a good paying job.
We did. We had a good paying job. One little problem, they opened up a, I don't know what they called it now, but it was a team of people who would call him trying to get bills paid.
Mhm.
And then I lost my train of thought.
Hmm.
But they opened that up and it was a new department.
Oh, okay.
And each one of them had a terminal that they had to be responsible to try to get the bills paid and that
To
was
get
not
bills
always easy.
owed to the company,
Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
so.
yeah.
uh,
And see, that was another addition because there were about 16, 17 girls, women that they hired. and a couple men.
Accounts receivable, that's what they call, if somebody,
Yeah, they didn't call it that.
okay.
And I can't remember.
But that was the basic function, was to try to
But they had a
minimize
supervisor.
bad
and-
debt,
Right.
you know,
Well, because you have so many terminals, it's really hard for
yeah,
the terminals to do it.
yeah,
So it was easier for them because they had it on computer and there was a little bit of, it never was really public, but there was a little bit of rumor that they really wanted to be union,
who wanted to be?
this department, some of the women from that department.
Oh, okay, because you mentioned there was a little bit of tension
That kind of
between
quells and,
the drivers were unionized, but everybody else was non-union,
no, but we were paid comparable.
yeah. But there was a little bit
And that
of
was
work.
okay, the drivers were okay with that, we never had a problem. It was a little difficult, I don't remember having very many strikes, but it was kind of hard driving around them to go into the office, but there was never any,
Oh, really? So there were some strikes?
yeah.
Yeah,
Just little things, and I don't remember lasting very long,
yeah.
yeah.
What was the major competition for Campbell 66?
Truck line wise,
Yeah.
probably Jones in Arkansas.
Out of Fayetteville?
Yeah, and he was a guy that was very much like Frank Campbell. He wore overalls to work. He was just an old Arkansas country boy. That, in fact, a part of what he started, it's still going, but it's called something else. And I don't know if they've changed several times, so I don't remember the name.
You know, I'd read somewhere that in the early days of the trucking industry, one of the biggest competitors was railroads. Railroads weren't real happy when trucking started to...
Well, no, and
Take
then
off.
they got more competitive because they would just pull the trailer up and put it on the thing of the train and take it the whole thing,
Right.
which they do now.
Right, right,
And deregulation hurt a lot.
yeah.
Because that opened up the independence and a lot of regulations that,
Yeah. And back when you were working, wasn't one of the growth strategies was if you just acquired another company, then you got those routes and the permissions from
That's
the
right.
from the federal government to haul freight along those routes. And
that's right, that's when you had to review what we call the point list to
yeah,
add everything.
yeah, yeah. So what was the most difficult part of your job?
You know, I really didn't have one that I know about.
You just
And
really
I think
enjoyed
it's
the
because
work?
I did so many things,
Yeah.
once I got into sales.
Uh-huh.
A little apprehension there from some of the girls, women. But no, I enjoyed everything I did. And I remember when they got the first computer, they put one on my desk, and that way I could answer the phone and trace a call. So I'd get those calls and I could
You tell
pull the
me.
freight bill up
Where
and
it's
tell where it
coming
was
from.
and what was going
Yeah.
on.
So you were there during the time of computerization.
Yes, yes.
And overall, it went well?
Well, I don't think it was long enough to know if it was going to go super, super well,
Yeah,
because we didn't have them very long. I was still typing on a typewriter when I left,
really?
because they gave us our typewriters.
Yeah,
They gave us our chairs and our typewriters.
really?
And yes, they were still using those, so they hadn't totally
Yeah.
computerized.
But the very early stages, I mean, you're talking about punch cards and that kind of stuff, or?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Listen, they were still doing punch cards when I left there.
yeah,
If you came in at 8, you punched at 8, and they had a girl in Chicago that would work part of her lunch hour, and then she'd sign up for pay. And they finally had to stop that. They had to make a new rule. Because you were 8 to 5, and that's what you did.
yeah.
And if you had an appointment, you checked out and you checked in. Which I think is a good thing.
Yeah. Did you get a break, a morning break and an
Yes.
afternoon break? Yeah.
Yes.
Did you have to punch out for that? Or?
No.
Yeah.
We got 15 in the morning, 15 in the afternoon.
Afternoon.
And I think that actually was federal law.
Yeah, yeah, I think
that
that's
did.
fair labor.
Yeah.
Um,
And if
And
we
what would
worked
you do during
overtime,
your-
we got paid for overtime.
yeah, what would you do during your breaks? Would you just, go outside a little bit?
Yeah, go downstairs and have a Coke.
Yeah,
Walk down the hallway, look out the front window.
yeah, yeah.
Well, we were looking out the window one day, and this big tank on a truck came down the road. And about the time it got even with us, the tank rolled over into our driveway.
Really?
Didn't hurt anybody. Yeah.
What did it have in it?
I don't know.
Just a
It
tank
was
or
an army
truck?
tank.
Oh, a tank.
Army tank.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Wonder what-
You know, then we had one day that somebody came in and said it was raining, and it was raining on this side of the building, but it wasn't raining on this side of the building.
spot shower.
That's right.
Now, that's pretty low down there. Did you ever have any floods down in the office area? Remember
No.
any floods?
No,
Okay.
no. That's another story for another place I worked
Oh, okay.
at Drury.
No fires?
No fires.
Thefts? Anybody ever break in and?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they did. I think once because they put the Christmas tree at the front door,
Uh-huh.
and I think somebody broke in once there because we had to quit putting the Christmas tree in front of the door, so it didn't entice And if we put it there, we can put any gifts under it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not even fake gifts.
And then we had a kid come in one day to sell something for candy or something, and somebody stole his bike while he was in there. So just those things like
that kind of stuff.
it really wasn't that populated
Yeah.
when Campbell was first there.
Yeah.
You do know it's still called Campbell Place.
Pardon?
The buildings that developed there.
Oh,
It's called Campbell's Place.
Campbell's Place.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
There were still streetcars.
I don't know.
You never took the streetcar.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
Trains, passenger trains still came into Springfield.
Yeah, I never rode one out. I
Yeah.
flew because of having a youngster. I flew
Yeah.
most trips that I made. And I made a lot of them because of being out of town from family.
Yeah.
Still do.
Yeah.
Um,
Back to South Carolina.
South Carolina, Florida, North Carolina,
Yeah.
and
That's
Wisconsin.
that's where most of your family is. Yeah. Did you ever have to travel for work?
No,
Never had to.
no. Mm-mm.
Hmm.
Only the salesman did that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, nobody else.
Yeah. But you do it all over again? You'd be doing it right now, you say.
I would do it all over again.
Yeah.
I would
Enjoyed it.
enjoy it.
It was good paying, good work.
Good work, good
Everybody
people.
worked hard.
The ending was not good, and you feel so bad for everybody, including yourself.
Yeah.
Off the record, I could tell you my experience, but
If you don't want to.
it's
that's
not
okay.
worth it anymore.
That's okay. Yeah.
You know, I'm at basketball games with Bill.
Yeah.
We visit.
Yeah. My sense is that federal regulation really did regulate the trucking industry.
That was the downfall.
Yeah.
It was whether they admitted it or not. That's when Drury went down. Was deregulation. You know, and I don't know. If I knew a lot more of this, maybe I would have been president when it went down, and it wouldn't have gone down. So I don't know the whole change that took place and the guys that supposedly bought.
Yeah. But it happened to a lot of trucking companies.
Yeah.
They couldn't,
Well, the Humper division pretty much was competing with.
yeah, couldn't survive.
Well, because they could drive longer, we couldn't take
Yeah.
the loads. Now theirs, if they went someplace, and they still do, and had an empty trailer coming back, it was certainly, but most of their drivers own their trailers,
Yeah.
own their trucks and trailers.
Yeah. Yeah, in Tucker, we interviewed, I've interviewed one Wildcat trucker, and he told me that the money run was carrying vegetables and fruit, to a lesser extent, back from California.
California.
So you'd take meat or something out to the West Coast, and you'd make money, but
Well, and they can drive longer.
yeah. But the real money was bringing vegetables back from the West Coast, back to St. Louis and
Yeah.
the major terminal
Yeah.
stations.
And Mr. Campbell started out was eggs and milk,
Yeah,
eggs and butter and milk,
yeah.
plus the cold centers out of the driveways.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that St. Louis was a major run to take the loads.
Yeah, very, yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what percentage of the business was what they call less than load, or partial loads?
You know, I don't.
Okay.
I would think it would be pretty low.
Pretty low was
Pretty low.
less than load. Most of them were full loads of something,
Tried to be,
whatever it was.
yeah.
One point to point kind of
Yes.
transport.
Yeah.
What was the nature of the in-town business?
The what?
The in-town business, would they just deliver stuff around town?
Yeah, we had pickup drivers, is what we called them. We picked up around town
Yeah.
and delivered around town.
Would they drive what they call straight trucks?
The kind of box trucks.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And just whatever.
I learned what a possum belly was too.
What's a possum belly?
For a while they tried them,
Uh-huh.
and down under where the trailer's here,
Uh-huh.
they had another compartment at the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
It just looked like a belly.
They put stuff in there too.
Yeah, they thought they could haul more, but it never,
Never worked
I
out.
don't think it ever worked out.
Yeah. Now,
And they even did the double trailers for a while,
yeah,
and that didn't work
yeah.
as well as the
You
other.
don't see many of those anymore.
No.
Did you ever go to? I mean, would you go back to the terminal, the loading dock, and what did they, was it all hand pallets?
Hand pallets.
Yeah.
And they had a thing that ran around the dock.
Really?
So if you could put something here and
Get
put
everything.
somewhere else, but they didn't use it a great deal. It was mostly dock work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But there were no automated forklifts or anything like that?
No. And I'd go back with, I enjoyed working with the drivers,
Really?
you know.
How were they as a group? I mean, they were just working and... you know.
Well, it was just a good place, and Mr. Camel was just that kind of person
Yeah,
that you know, could run.
yeah.
He wasn't able to involve himself in a lot of the stuff after the deregulation, and because he had some amount of strokes and
Mm-hmm.
and just didn't.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, at the end, he really couldn't talk.
Mm.
So he carried a rolled newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
If I was with him and he
Get your
wanted to talk, he'd
attention.
do this.
Get your attention.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I spent time over there, and you know, I sent out all the thank you cards after he died, and Mrs. Camel, I was with her,
Uh-huh.
and I just kind of liked everybody.
Yeah. I hear that he was very keen on safety,
Yes,
that he was a real stickler
we had
for.
two safety men out of Springfield, I think,
Mm-hmm.
general that traveled
Yeah.
to places.
And they would just look for ways to improve safety
Improve
of the
safety.
whole operation.
Yeah, and they gave out pins
Yeah,
according to how many years you had.
yeah,
Regional managers took part in that too
yeah.
in the later years.
And some of the drivers would go for years without having any kind of an accident or
Yes,
traffic
Yeah.
violation of any type.
Yeah. one really bad one. I remember the guy just went to sleep
Yeah,
and you know, ran off.
yeah,
A few overweight trucks we'd have to take care of at the weight stations, but that wasn't a often thing.
yeah.
Because they had a weight that they drove on when they went out of the terminal.
Oh, really?
And the other thing, we were actually the protesters for Chestnut Expressway, because it took Camel off the highway.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause then you had to drive that little driveway.
Mm-hmm.
So we protested that a lot, and you know, had what we thought were plausible, but it didn't work that way, as it usually does
Right.
when the city wants to do something.
Can't stop progress.
And that probably has been a good thing in the long run
Yeah.
for other people.
But that was kind of contentious, the building of
It was
Chestnut
a little bit.
Chestnut
Yeah.
Expressway, yeah.
Yeah,
Displaced a lot of businesses, left them high and dry.
yeah.
Yeah. Same with,
I had not been out there until just recently and saw the overpass on the railroad tracks.
oh, yeah.
Because sometimes we were late to work.
Oh,
because
I haven't
we
been
had
out
to
there.
sit
Is it finished now?
It's not quite. But
Pretty close?
You can see, you
Yeah.
can see it. My dentist is out there over there.
Yeah.
But yeah, Camel 66, you know, if they opened up now with the same salaries, same people, we'd be fine.
Yeah.
Because we've all stayed friends. In fact, the ladies had lunches for several years.
Really?
We would meet for lunch.
Really?
One day I had them come to Drury for
Uh-huh.
lunch, and we served, and then we had several places that we'd gone. And there are about 12 of us that kind of kept in pretty close touch.
Good.
Yeah.
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 And really, that's the point of camaraderie, is you all worked at Camel
Yeah.
66 Express. Yeah. Do you know, do the men keep together at all? Or the male employees, do they get together?
You know, I don't think so much. Theirs was mostly lunch and playing cards.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they've stayed in touch afterwards. I don't think really well.
Uh-huh.
But we did, about 5 years ago, one of the women there and one of the drivers, who at the time lived in Thailand and had moved back here,
Mhm.
we got together and they made phone calls to every Springfield employee and Joplin, because Joplin came.
Organize a
over
reunion
us.
of some sort, or?
And had lunch.
Yeah.
We had a dinner at the, one of the places there in Glenstone,
Mhm.
and we had over 200
Really?
for that.
Just a few years ago?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was just I've got a list of everybody with their phone numbers and their emails, and
Yeah.
try to keep it updated.
Yeah.
And I've given Bruce a lot of that.
Yeah. Do you use, the newfangled stuff, Facebook and some of those things?
I use Facebook.
To keep in touch with people?
Yeah, I do, but I use it mostly for family.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's fun to keep up.
yeah.
In fact, there's a lady that worked at Camel with me, and then she went to Sunnyland. She was a tour director.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a big Drury basketball fan, so we've stayed in real close. We were just together the other night.
Mm-hmm.
So we've stayed close over the years.
Uh-huh.
So you have those people.
Yeah.
And Bruce, I don't even remember. I think he maybe saw me on Facebook, or his wife did, and contacted me.
Yeah.
It's amazing how involved he's gotten with it.
Yeah.
I mean, his
Yes.
house is, he's got trying to get all the Camel tracks. I've got
We
some for him.
interviewed him. He was our first interview. Was interviewed
Yeah.
Bruce Grimm. There's a mystery that maybe you can help solve. So I had to be over in Tulsa for a alumni event,
Mm-hmm.
and I was going to drive back that night. So I think it ended about 8:30. So I'm driving back from Tulsa, and I'm going down the Oklahoma Turnpike, and it's dark, and I get behind this van, and I'm looking at it, and it's plastered with Campbell 66 decals, and and I was like, this is when I think we maybe had applied for the grant or just knew we'd gotten the grant. I thought it was Bruce Grimm, and I didn't do anything. But later I thought, well, how would I have gotten somebody to pull over on the Oklahoma Turnpike, going 70 miles an hour at night,
Yeah.
Well, no one in their right mind, if they just saw some car like get in front of you and slow down and turn the
There's
signal.
probably a driver out there somewhere.
Yeah, but there's somebody around here that is so into Camel 66 Express that he or she has.
But they could be from Tulsa.
Yeah, the van is just plastered with. There's no mistaking when you see this van what this person's interested in. It's Camel 66 Express. You don't know who that person
I
is.
don't.
Okay.
I don't. Bruce might know.
Yeah.
He's traveled all over looking for trailers. And
Well, I think I asked
using
him.
for
He said, "No, it
storage
wasn't
now, but
me."
I don't think it's him.
It wasn't me.
No,
Yeah.
his wife wouldn't let him do that.
Okay. So I'm sure I saw this. I don't think I dreamt it or something.
No, you did. And if you Google it, there may be somebody out there that would answer you.
Yeah, maybe I should do Google Images or something.
Because if you go in Camel 66, it's amazing what you find.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a
Even
lot.
now.
Yeah, there's a lot of.
Yeah.
We're going to go up to Henry's Rabbit Ranch in Staunton, Illinois, and he's got a bunch of Campbell 66 Express trailers. And,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Bruce has been in contact with a lot, but Bruce has stayed with the trucking industry.
Yeah.
He goes to the meetings here too.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, he was there. He was there till the very, very end.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was probably just he and Bill Pitt left,
Mm-hmm.
and then he left. I see Bill at the basketball games because, and the floor says, "Will you make the court?" Because Brad donated the money there for Drury. So I see him at the games, and he told me one night that I took care of him for 20 years. And I said, and I wanted to say, yeah, and then you fired me, but I didn't.
So
you can't let those things get in your way.
Yeah.
Life's too short.
Yeah.
Life's too short.
Yeah, I agree.
He had a lot of stuff that he brought over to me, that he had of Camel 66 stuff, and I've helped dispense it.
Mm-hmm.
He had some
Okay.
in some storage. So, and I gave Bruce, I think we had a bronze thing that was there in one of the hallways,
Yeah.
and I gave that to Bruce, and he cleaned it up.
I've heard from several people. Once any memorabilia shows on, some of those online auction sites and stuff, they get snapped up like that.
Well, Bill Bruce is buying stuff there.
Yeah.
I see, there just came a day for me, and of course, working at Drury was the best thing that ever happened to me. I was so lucky. But there came a day for me when it's like, okay, we're finished.
This is over. Yeah.
The only thing I have in my house that I'm trying to get rid of is I have 3 Camel 66 hats, brown with mesh in front.
Mm-hmm.
And I have 1 toy truck that I had, and I think I have a belt buckle. And I'm trying to, and Bruce helped, and I helped give it to people.
Yeah. What'd you do at Drury, just out of curiosity? What were you doing at Drury?
I went to Drury as a secretary in the, what they call the physical plant at the time. It was it's facilities now.
Right.
And I was secretary in the department.
Uh-huh.
And we had the work orders that we had to dispense to the custodians and to the
Right.
and to the maintenance people.
Right.
And I was there for 2.5 years.
Oh, okay.
And then an opening came in the vice president's office.
Oh,
And I got phone calls congratulating me because I'd gotten that job. And I said, well, I appreciate it, but I haven't applied for it. I don't have any interest. But, you know, I'm happy where I am. It's slow. It's trying to lift people up, the custodians and those people that you know, I needed it. And Human Resources called one day and she said, well, okay, but you need to go over to Bill Wasson. He was the vice president. You might know him. You need to go over and take your resume. And I did, and I told him, I said, I'm happy, they told me to do this, I'm happy where I am. Whatever you decide is fine with me. So he called 2 days later and he said, well, I pick you, now what are you gonna do? So I was over there for 13 years.
13 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Had three vice presidents while I was there. I had Bill Wasson when I went. He was Dr. Moore. He and Dr. Moore came from Jeff City together and ran the place. And then Jim Buckholtz, who had graduated from Drury and took on that job. And then Rusty Worley.
Oh, really? Rusty Worley?
Rusty was my boss.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that.
And when they got that crazy president, he fired him.
Oh, yeah.
Told him he wasn't qualified, and there's nobody that cared more about Drury than he did. But he got a good job.
Yeah. So he's working with
He's good at doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
So I worked there, and that was my retirement.
Yeah.
I did a lot of things there.
Yeah.
Because in like with Rusty more than any, he used a computer. If he wanted to correspond to somebody, he just did it.
He wasn't part of that generation that would say, come in, I need you to take a letter.
And I worked the president's office when the person was gone and didn't show up or something was going on over there.
Yeah.
And what else did I do? Oh, I know, they never had an inventory when I went there. Nothing had ever been inventoried at the university.
Just equipment and
chairs, tables, anything.
Really?
So I took one of the custodians, and she went to every building, and she described the best she could.
What was there?
And I looked them up and priced everything and worked up an inventory of everything on campus. So that was my proud thing that I did there.
Especially for insurance purposes.
Yeah.
You know, replacement costs and things like that, you know.
And then made sure that they kept it up, you know, with forms every time something came in.
Yeah, so you started the inventory process.
I did,
at Drury.
while I was there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a job and a half.
It was.
Yeah.
Well, even after you get it done, it's a job and a half making everybody responsible when they order something, because sometimes they didn't have to go through us to order it.
Yeah.
They had a budget that they worked on, which you probably know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still going and still good.
Good.
And the other thing that I did is I ordered furniture for the new buildings at the end too.
Now I know that that's a job and a half.
Yeah. In fact, I worked another year to furnish the science building.
Yeah.
So I did all of that.
That's a lot of work.
Worked with Terry West to get the right colors and the right kinds of equipment and
fabric and all kinds of stuff.
So that's what I did for about the last 3 or 4 years I was there.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. So
we're doing that right now, and I know, boy, some of those meetings, your eyes glaze over after a while, or, you know.
Yeah, you do.
There's so many decision points and so many options, and.
Yeah, but, you know, Dr. Moore, when he had meetings, he always told everybody that I ran here's the lady that runs the university. But when I had a building that was running short and I had the furniture ready to come in and these guys weren't doing what they were supposed to do, and I just went over and said, we're moving today, so you do whatever you have to do.
Yeah.
And Dr. Moore looked at me and said, George is moving today, so you better get it done. So that's what I did there.
Yeah, good.
Pretty much.
And even just that, you know.
I just love, like I said, I just love working.
Yeah.
My husband and I have 20 acres in the country now. We moved to town.
Oh, yeah?
We have wildflowers and fruits and veggies and
you have
stuff.
20 acres?
20. Yeah, we have 20. A neighbor cuts part of it.
Yeah.
And in the back of it, we fenced it off
Uh-huh.
to see some of the wildlife out. It doesn't. And we just have lots of wildflowers.
Yeah.
And it's just a place to go.
Where's it located?
It's out Rogersville.
Out by Rogersville?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, go out 125 to U Highway
Yeah.
and back in there. Yeah.
No, exactly. We just went down to McClurg. There's a fiddling jam session down in McClurg on Monday nights.
Yeah.
So I know exactly where you are.
Well, we built our home there. We had 40 acres, and we sold the house in 20.
Uh-huh.
We made the decision together. We wanted to come to town.
Uh-huh.
We're renting a duplex.
Yeah.
Don't have to mow the yards here. We
Yeah.
go out there in the afternoons.
Yeah.
John goes every day. I don't.
Yeah.
But it's just a place to go.
20 acres.
20 acres.
Yeah.
But we don't charge the guy. He fertilizes and does everything he wants to.
Yeah.
And probably if we sell it and he could buy it, he will
Yeah.
at some point.
He takes care
But we
of it.
have probably 200 species of wildflowers.
Yeah.
We're just trying to, try to see how many we can get.
There's a whole, grow native again kind of movement, get some
There is, but I certainly don't like Drury's landscaping.
juries.
All with wildflowers. And wildflowers are great, but you can't just leave them to be brown.
Yeah.
I was over there the other day and I wanted to get in that bed so bad and get those out of there. I have to talk to that guy since then. But I still, if I had the choice, would go back to Camel. It was a busy place and it was a fun place.
But it was
It
very
was
satisfying.
Yeah, got along with everybody.
Work environment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much for taking the time.
Well, I don't know if I've said anything worthwhile, but
It's, as I told you, oral history is all about memories and experiences, and that's
Yeah.
what we captured.
we had
So,
some great ones.
yeah.
In fact, I'll be narcissistic.
Okay.
These are some of the good times I had there.
Wow. Somebody's birthday cake, is that what you're
That's mine, and that's
Slicing.
Mrs. Camel.
Let me see if I can get this on the screen, if it'll focus for me. Yeah, maybe not. Try to zoom in a little bit on it. That's not working very well. Yeah, okay.
There may be another one somewhere of that.
All right.
This is the night my husband got drunk. This is him.
Let's see.
Neither one of the pictures came out well.
He didn't look too bad. He didn't look the worse for wear. That's him there on the left.
Yes,
All right.
that's him again. And this
Same
is-
party?
Yeah.
Okay. Unfortunately, it's kind of gotten whited out over time there, facial expressions.
Yeah.
But
His eyes.
He's still
He was
upright.
already high.
he's upright.
This is just sometimes we had a birthday, and that's our conference room.
Uh-huh.
And then this is me and Jim House, who was a just fat person for years.
Let's see if I can get that. Yeah, that's pretty good there. Okay.
I just did my pictures and I pulled all of these out. And here two of my friends having lunch in the conference room.
Okay. Roughly, is that
You can turn 'em.
60s, 70s?
Probably
I'm trying to guess the...
good.
Sometimes
Margaret's gone, Donna.
they used to
is
stamp the
still here.
dates on
This
photographs.
is a terminal manager from Tupelo, Mississippi. He was in for, I did sales meetings.
Uh-huh. Oh, you
And I
organized
took
sales
notes.
meetings. Oh, yeah.
And they would come to town and they'd be in the conference room and they'd have a guest speaker.
Is this a bowl?
And this guest speaker would go to, this is how times have changed. He would go to tell a joke that was a little off shade.
Yeah.
And he'd look straight at me. Now, Georgia, I'm going to tell this.
Just to prepare you? Is this some trophy that you received here?
Let's see.
And that's the route map there on the back wall.
That's probably my bowling trophy,
Okay.
because I was bowled a lot. And this was a Christmas party. I got to meet, when they were building Breach, I got to meet Tennessee Ernie Ford
Oh, boy.
and visit.
That's you with Tennessee Ernie
Yeah.
Ford? Wow. Let's see if I can get that a little bit.
And what we did is, a friend of mine from Camel 66, we worked there. We would go on our lunch hour, and we could never catch him. So the last time we went, we asked a lady, there was a redheaded lady running around with stuff. And we told her we worked and we only had this time and how could we get to see him. She just handed us 2 tickets and we went to dress rehearsal. So that was kind of neat too.
Wow. Now, what year did you come to Springfield?
I was married in 56, we came to 57.
57.
Yeah.
You
No,
didn't-
we came in 56.
56?
Mhm.
Late 56? You didn't ever happen to go to the Ozark Jubilee, did you? Down.
Did not, we watched it.
You watched on TV?
Yeah.
Never went
was
live.
there.
Yeah. But you were right here in Springfield when it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have
John
any
and I
memory?
were married. John and I were married. We met on Valentine's Day, which is February. We married on June 1st.
Mhm.
And then we came, he was in the Air
You met on
Force.
Valentine's Day just by chance? Or
At church.
at church?
Got married on June 1st and moved to Springfield on November.
Oh, okay.
Actually on my birthday.
Now, what brought him to South Carolina?
Service, Air Force.
Oh,
We had an Air Force
oh.
base there. Shaw
Okay.
Air Force Base
Uh-huh.
was there. There's Mr. and Mrs. Camel.
All right. And that's you there in the
Yeah.
blue dress?
That's our bowling team.
Mm-hmm.
We really had a lot of fun with bowling because our shirts had a camel.
Did he
And just-
supply
And
them?
just
or-
the hump and the please.
Yeah.
And when we go out of town, we just enjoyed walking through the crowds and listening to them. That was just fun.
It was just fun.
It was fun. That was on my 20th anniversary.
All right. Is that Frank?
Uh-huh.
So every 5 years you'd have everybody.
Every 5 years we got a service pin. I got a
Yeah.
25 was the last one.
So you'd have an annual event where just for.
And I don't
people
have
that-
it now, but I took my service pins and had a ring made
Yeah.
with the diamonds from it because I had.
There you are, Georgia Shaffer on the back wall there.
Yep. So it was a fun place to be.
Mm-hmm.
This is just at my desk and what I did. This is Mr. Camel. I don't know what that one was for.
Okay. All right.
So it was a fun time. And that's Mrs. Camel. You already seen one of those. That was it.
Okay.
That's just my little workplace, what I did on the
Okay.
all the time.
Now, can I just take a? Oh, okay. There's your typewriter behind you.
Yep.
That's probably, that kind
And
of looks like
this-
the IBM selector kind
Yes.
of phase of
Yes.
work. Yeah.
And here's the interesting thing. When we went home at night, that typewriter was closed up, our desk was clean.
Yeah.
We had to wash our own desk.
Every
We
night.
had that old kind of not every
Yeah.
night, but that kind of corkboard stuff that would really get stained.
Oh yeah.
And if we wanted them clean, we had to wash them.
Yeah.
In fact, Drury was doing that too when I left there. When they kind of went a little short on money.
Uh-huh.
So anyway.
All right.
Okay, thanks for letting me share that.
Thank you very much.